Hello, everyone. It's beautiful February afternoon. My name is Chantal Hockheimer, and I'm a real estate investor and the licensed broker with Aspire Peak Properties. As leases are a big ticket item when it comes to rental properties, I thought I'd jump on video today to go over some technical items you may or may not be familiar with when it comes to leases in Alberta. So a couple topics I wanted to talk to you today about were the differences between a fixed term lease and a periodic lease, garage leases, and then what we call working leases. Okay. Sorry, I just had to yawn there. Oh, it was a long day. Okay, so to jump right in, fixed term leases are probably the easiest to understand. They have a start date and an end date. So for example, I have a tenant moving in here and his lease is March 1st, 2022 to February 28th, 2023. The tenancy cannot be terminated unless both parties agree to end it early. Unless, of course, that there's issues with the tenant, and that's a whole nother topic for lease breaks, subleases, and evictions. So no notice is required by either party to end this lease. It automatically ends on that end date in the lease. Okay, so it's going to automatically end February 28th, 2023. Obviously, you want to be courteous and reconfirm with the tenant that it is ending, or offer a renewal to extend if you have a great tenant. Now, if you don't reconfirm with that tenant that the lease is ending and the tenant doesn't move out like required, the RTA, the Residential Tenancy Act, assumes, the word there is assumes, you both have agreed to roll it into a periodic tenancy, and your lease automatically moves into a month-to-month. Now, for us as Aspire Peak Properties, if we do a renewal on a fixed term lease, we're sending it out about 60 days ahead of time, and then having the tenant sign a new fixed term lease, sometimes at a higher rent if we do the rental increase that year, or sometimes we keep the rent the same. But the key is that they're signing a new fixed term lease. Our leases don't go into month-to-month or periodic tenancy ever, and I'll explain why. So the difference for a periodic tenancy, majority of people know it as month-to-month lease. Some roll into it automatically after that fixed term, or others are simply month-to-month from the beginning. Now, the reasons we don't roll our leases into month-to-month is because of the following. We don't know when the unit will become available. This is not stable for us for scheduling. It's not stable for our owners for renewing of their mortgages and any kind of financials on their side. Two, the banks don't like periodic leases as it's not a guaranteed rent for a set time. So if a landlord is trying to refinance or purchase property, that can't use that lease as income for qualifying because it's month-to-month and not a fixed term lease. It's probably my biggest pet peeve when I go and look at rental properties to invest in, is that all leases are all set on month-to-month. So yeah, not good. And number three, there's now specific requirements to get a tenant out of the property if something is going wrong. Okay. So on periodic leases, there are only a couple ways you as a landlord can remove the tenant from the property when they haven't done something wrong. Okay. 90-day notice is required if you as a landlord or immediate relative is moving into the property. Now we're talking mother, father, brother, sister. It might extend to aunt and uncle, but that's might. 90 days notice is required if you have sold the property and the buyer wants to move in or have their relative move in. Key here, sold means when conditions are waived, when the sale is firm. Okay, so your 90 days would be from that point on. So after conditions have been removed from the sale of the property, possession is 90 days out. 90 days notice is required if you've sold the property and the buyer asks for vacant possession. Okay, this is only for detached, semi-detached, or condo units. It is not for multifamily units or multifamily properties, sorry. 365 days notice if you plan to do major renovations to the unit. Major renovations do not include paint, floors, or normal maintenance, okay? And there's also another one in there too about converting a multifamily building from a condominium or into a condominium. So there are very specific ways that you can get a tenant out if they've done nothing wrong, if they're month-to-month leases. Those are the main leases in Alberta and how they work. Now, the last couple of years, it seems to become popular that garages are being rented out separately from the main space to get more cash flow in the property. Here's the thing. Well, that can be great. It can also be a headache. I don't typically recommend doing them separate unless you have a storage unit or garage units that are separate on a multifamily property. So when I mean separate, I mean like a ways away from the building. We're not talking a detached garage in the back alley. We're talking on the side of the building. They're separate units altogether. The reason I recommend that is just because the rental difference really isn't that much different from renting out the whole property with a garage on a single family versus then renting out the house only and the garage separately. The other thing is your separate garage on those single family properties are not covered or governed by the Residential Tenancy Act of Alberta. The language they use in the RTA in a rental unit, is a rental unit that is a livable space. Okay, garages are not livable spaces. So if you run into issues with late rent or damages or breaking leases, all of this would need to go through small claims court versus the RTDRS, which is the Residential Tenancy Dispute Resolution Service. It's just something to think about. The last type of lease I want to talk about today was working leases, or what we call working leases. I don't think it's an official term out there. It's more something you see if you're self-managing or as an investor picking up a property, you might see some of these leases. Most common on multifamily properties again. So what I mean by working leases is you're renting a unit, but you provide a discounted rent for a service around the property. So like snow removal, landscaping, or cleaning common hallways. Okay, again, the RTA does not oversee or govern these types of leases, but you can still get a court date through the RTDRS to go over the discounted rent they owe you. So what that means is they will only, my words today. What that means is that the RTDRS will only consider the discounted rent, not the full rent owed. I hope that makes sense. Well, guys, that is it for leases in Alberta. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me and I'll be happy to answer them. And I hope you guys have learned something today and it was beneficial. Have a great rest of your day and stay tuned for more tips and tricks for landlords. All right, bye.